Hello again there folks, Lone Adventurer here. Thank you very much for stumbling your way upon my channel and joining me for another adventure. Today I'm going to be playing Basilisk, which is a solo Mork adjacent game that plays very quickly and is very deadly, and it's written by 1D10+5, who is the creator of Solitary Defilement, which is a well-known solo supplement for Mork, and one that's very popular in the solo gaming community. Now, Basilisk is a game that's been around for a few years now. I think that it probably predates all of the solo Mork adjacent Dark Fort type games that I've played on the channel. I would imagine it doesn't predate Dark Fort itself, but it definitely predates all those other bits and pieces that I've been playing. So it predates Groton, it predates Meanwhile Somewhere Deep in the Dark Caribbean. I'm just flicking through the videos on my channel to see which other ones we've got. It predates The Black City and Enter the Dismal Armory. All of these games that are built on the Mork mechanics and the structures of Dark Fort. Now, Basilisk definitely inhabits the same space, but it's a little bit different. And it's a game that doesn't have a huge amount of coverage here on YouTube, so I did want to check it out. Before we go any further, can I ask you to subscribe to my channel if you find enjoying this adventure and you want to see more just like it. I regularly upload videos of solo games of all shapes and forms. So yeah, if you want to subscribe, I'd very much appreciate that. If you want to check out Basilisk yourself, there'll be a link down in the description below, where I will also include a link to my 10-ish micro dungeon delving solo games video, in which I go over a whole bunch of different games that occupy the same space as this one. So I'm going to read the introductory text, which is very Mork in its content, and then I will give you a brief introduction to the game, and we'll put together a character. The seventh misery is at hand, yet there may be salvation for some. As the skies darkened and the sun burned out, people whispered of the mandates of a necrubel, documents sealed by the great and dismal deity, guaranteeing passage on the wings of the great two-headed basilisk. Passage from the dying world to the undying hereafter. 5 copies of the mandate have been recovered. You have lied, betrayed, tricked and murdered, and now hold one in your grimy fist. Now you must descend into the catacombs beneath Bergen Chrypt and present your mandate to the head of Verhu. So, another game that is very compact. We have got rules for playing the game here. Then on the other side we've got character creation and then some tables. And that is it. And we play on a separate sheet that is also provided. It's this way round. Okay, so when we come to play, I might move the camera a little closer, and then I'll just have to remember to move the sheet up and down. Now you can see I've been playing a game here, and immediately you can see one of the things that sets this game apart, and I think one of the reasons why it has proven to be so popular. In Basilisk, you are taking a series of 5 characters into this crypt. But you're not taking them in as a party, you're taking them in one at a time, with the expectation that most of them are going to die. It feels almost like a game show when you're playing it. You take one of your contestants, you throw them in, you see how they do, they lose, the next one has a go. And that's really nice, because these games are so often quite deadly. It kind of plays out that way anyway. You know your character's got a decent chance of dying. So here, where you're playing a game where that is the expectation, it's okay. You've even got down here a little section for how your character is killed. So this game here, which I didn't end up finishing because I got distracted by something else. So I had 5 characters. 3 of the characters I took in and they died. Cree, Mick and Itcher. Cree fell into a hell vent. Mick fell from stepping stones. Quite a bit of falling going on. and Itcher was killed by crypt robbing scum. So that's really nice. It sort of changes the dynamic of the game. It changes how you feel about the characters. You're expecting them to die, and it's all part of the fun and all part of the experience. So what we will do now is we will create a single new character together, and then off camera I'll create the other 4, because you don't really need to see all of them being created. I've called our first character here Mooney. Mooney is going to need a strength score, an agility, a presence and a toughness score. We'll then be working out their HP, giving them a boon and an affliction, and then some weaponry. So we're going to roll 8 for each stat, and then that will tell us the score that they get. So first our strength, 7, that's good, that gives +1. Then agility, 2, that is quite bad, that is -1. 3 for presence is going to give us -1. At least Mooney can hit stuff though. And then 7 again for toughness, which is +1. Hit points are 15 plus toughness, so that is going to be 16. So we'll put that for the max HP and the current HP. Then we're going to roll a boon, affliction and starting equipment. Nope, we need a D4 rather for this. I suppose I could have halved that, couldn't I? 1 for the boon gives us boggle-eyed, which means that impenetrable darkness has no effect. So you just mark the boon like that. We've got little lists for each, so it's nice and quick and snappy. You don't have to write anything down. There's only 4 of each, so there's 5 afflictions. So when you start playing with a particular character, you just remind yourself what those are, and there aren't too many things to remember. There aren't dozens and dozens of abilities and stuff. You might end up with a few items that you have to remember, but the characters die so quickly that it doesn't matter that much. Then an affliction, 2, that gives us illiterate. And it does say to roll a D4, even though there's a 5th affliction. I think that's one you just acquire through gameplay. And then we're going to have 1 random treasure, roll 1d10 on the table on the opposite page, and d4 for the weapons. We'll do the weapon first. 4 gives us a crossbow, d8 damage, use presence. See note in combat section. So I'm just going to write d8 presence, and we'll worry about that later. Then we need 1 random treasure, so we're going to roll d10 for that. Oh, I've been rolling the dice off screen. I think I have, haven't I? I've moved it so close. Sorry about that. Here we go for the treasure. 2. Notice that a standard treasure roll is d20, but for the starting treasure you roll d10, which limits you to the first half. And we found ourselves a salve, which will allow us to heal d6 HP. We'll just write salve. There we go. And that is our first character created. Okay, so the whole gang is together. We've got Mooney, we've got Wig, Jack, Abs and Colin. Mooney we already know. Wig is not looking good, is devious and illiterate, does have a sword and a phase key which allows them to create a secret door at some point. Jack has got +2 in presence, -1 in toughness though, so that's resulted in a lower HP. Is boggle-eyed and illiterate, only has a staff but has a rogue's kit that can disarm a single trap. Abs, -2 in toughness but +2 in presence and +1 in strength, so a very low HP but does have a crossbow and a rogue's kit as well. And Colin, nothing below 0, but a couple of 0s and a couple of 1s. Max HP of 16 as a result of that +1 in toughness. Brutal, pariah, only has a staff but has a bomb. So it's time to start really. We're going to just go straight in. Here is our map. We have got the lair over here, and we've got 3 potential points of entry over here. Now you have to get a character into the lair in order to have a chance at success. Once you're in the lair, we've got this little situation down here. You have to defeat Verhu's arch cultist, so you've got a final boss to defeat, and then you have a random roll to see how well you do, and you're adding on your presence, so you might die or you might be saved. So as we take Mooney into the crypt, we are going to look at this little section on navigation. Each time you enter an empty square, roll on the rooms table. You will roll for exits for most rooms except some special rooms, and but make your way around, see what happens. The rooms table is a D10 table. So we're rolling a 5. We've got a weak monster. So because this is a standard room, if you roll a 9 or a 10, you get a special room. We also need to roll for exits. We're going to be rolling out D8. And that gives us a crossroads. That is good. You want lots of exits. I'm going to bring Mooney in through the middle entrance. And we've got exits in all directions. We've got a weak monster, so we're going to roll on the weak monster table here. 2 gives us an Unterwolf. Difficulty roll of 10, 4 HP and D6 damage. So for combat, we're going to be rolling D20 and adding on either our strength or our presence if using a crossbow. Oh, that's unfortunate. So our weapon is a crossbow and Mooney has -1 presence. So in order to use our weapon, we've got to use our worst stat. Bit of a shame. And then we've got a little table here. So the difficulty level of the Unterwolf, was that what it was called? An Unterwolf? Was 12. So all we have to do is roll our D20 and consult this and see how we've done. So we're that's bad. We're attacking with our crossbow. 7 -1 for the presence is 6. So we've rolled under the difficulty roll number. Player takes damage. And the Unterwolf does D6 damage, I think it was. Yeah, that's pretty bad news. 5 points of damage. It might be that Mooney dies in the first room. 11. Let's hope for a bit more luck this time. We're going to attack again. Oh my goodness. 11 -1. Oh, 10. So we've rolled equal to DR. Both player and monster take damage. And the monster has 4 HP. And we are attacking with our crossbow, which is D8. 2. Okay. And we're also taking damage. 5, obviously. Down to 6. Oh dear, Mooney. Not going to get very far in at all by the looks of things. So we're going to attack again. 13. Down to 12. That is over, which means we have wounded the monster. D8 damage. 6. That is enough to finish it off. And the Unterwolf is defeated. We're going to add the monster's DR to our points. So I think that was 10. So points can be used to get better. We can spend 10 points to gain a boon of our choice, increase a stat by 1 up to +1, fully heal, or increase current and max HP by D4. Now I would love to increase our presence up by 1, but really we're down to 6 points of HP, so we should probably just fully heal. So it's a shame not to do one of those other cooler things, but I think Mooney would never forgive me if I didn't fully heal. Alright, so that's the first room done. So all we need to do now is choose where to go next. And as you would imagine, we are going to move directly towards the lair. So you're always trying to get over here. So we're going to move into this area. We are going to roll D10 to see what we've got in the next room. 3. It is trapped. How many exits do we have? 3, just ahead. But at least that's in the direction of the lair. So we've got our traps table here. It's D8. 2. We've got ourselves a spiked pit. It does D4 damage, DR6 agility to climb out or sustain further damage. Now we can avoid the trap by testing DR presence. Mooney's presence is -1. Oh, 15 minus 1 is 14. So we have managed to avoid the trap. Now traps stay in place until they have been triggered or presumably disarmed using a rogue's kit. Yeah, it says remove the trap. So this trap is going to stay in place and might get a future person. So I guess I need to write spiked pit. It might be that this sheet benefits from being printed out at a larger size. I have been getting away with doing it as half A4 for the map, but sometimes you need to record traps and you need to record enemies, I think, that you don't defeat. I think they stay in place as well, and it can be a bit tricky to squeeze that in. Anyway, Mooney avoids the spiked pit and is going to go into another room. Also trapped, and how many exits? 2 left. So no longer moving directly towards the exit. The lair. We've got another trap. 1 teleport. It'll move you D4 spaces in a random direction. So not the worst trap in the world, I suppose, but let's see if we are able to avoid it. 20, yes we are. So we'll just make a little note that it's in here. And on to the next room. So you can see it plays pretty quickly. There's very little in the way of faff in this game. 6 is a tough monster guarding a treasure. Okay. 7 means we've got right and ahead. That is good. Notice that when I am doing these exits, I'm doing them from the perspective of Mooney, from the perspective of the character. So Mooney is moving into this room in this direction. So right for Mooney is over here and dead ahead is over here. And if they were moving that way, then right would have been that way and dead ahead would have been that way, if you see what I mean. So it's from their point of view. And I think that's the easiest way, at least for my brain, that's the easiest way to work that out. We've got our tough monsters down here. It is a D6 table. 5, that feels bad. Basilisk spawn. DR12, 6 HP, 6 damage. Special, DR16 agility, or be hit by a preemptive fire blast, D6 damage. Or Mooney, I'm not sure I rate your chances here. So it doesn't say when the special occurs, but the fact that it's a preemptive fire blast implies to me that it is an extra attack that they do, that the Basilisk spawn does before combat starts. So we'll deal with that first. So this is an agility roll, DR16. Mooney's agility is -1, so we've got to get a pretty high roll to avoid this. 5, that is not a high roll. So it's D6 damage. 5. Apparently I can only roll 5s when receiving damage for Mooney. Right, so then we're going to go into standard combat. So remember, we're using our presence because we're attacking with the crossbow, so that's at a -1. The difficulty roll is 16. I mean, do I accept that old Mooney isn't going to make it out alive, or do we try and flee? Should we do 1 round of combat? See if there's some extreme luck going on here. 3. That is not extreme luck, that's under the difficulty roll, which means we're taking D6 damage. 5. So right back down to 6. Okay, let's try and flee. So we've got rules for fleeing here. To flee combat, roll D6. 5. Something wrong with my dice? Successful evasion. Oh, if we'd rolled a 6, we'd have got the treasure as well. So we managed to flee and get out. So we need to make a note that it is still here. And I'm going to put a little tiny treasure chest symbol and hope that I remember that the basilisk spawn has some treasure. Alright, so we're going to carry on into the next room, getting ever closer to the lair. We're rolling 1d10. 9 gives us a special room. So then we roll on the special room table down here. 4. Impenetrable darkness. 4 exits. Roll d4 to determine which door you leave through. Any combat here is dr plus 6. I think you can attack an enemy from an adjacent room with a crossbow. And if you do that, then the enemy then comes into the room with you. And I suppose if it was this impenetrable darkness room, that combat would be more tricky. But we know we've got 4 exits. And if you remember, our boon, Mooney's boon, is that he is boggle-eyed, which means impenetrable darkness has no effect. So that is nice, but we will need to mark on here that this room has impenetrable darkness, so that anyone who comes through here in the future has to deal with that if they are not boggle-eyed. But it's all good for Mooney. He is not shaken by this impenetrable darkness. He can carry on, and in fact he'll carry on the way he knows to be the best way, onwards towards the lair, and we will roll another room and see how that works out. 9, another special room. A necrospire. A weak monster is here. While monsters are near the necrospire, they cannot be injured, only evaded. Right. We need to work out how many exits we have here, since the necrospire does not specify. 4 gives us just a right turn, so we're no longer moving directly towards our exit. So we've got a weak monster in here, and all we can do is evade it. So we're going to roll a d6 to find out what the weak monster is. 1 gives us a whisper bird. Now we could attack the whisper bird from the next room and take it out. Oh no, so if it remains near the necrospire, so we could hit it with our crossbow from the next room. It wouldn't do any damage, but then it would come towards us, and then we would be able to kill it if we were so inclined. And maybe we were, because a whisper bird has a difficulty roll of 5, and that doesn't sound so bad. So let's just mentally park the fact that we've got a whisper bird here. Roll for the next room. 2 is trapped. So the next room has a trap. How many exits? 1. Dead end. That's unfortunate. So we've got a trapped dead end just when we thought we were getting closer to the lair. We need to find out what the trap is. 5 gives us a monster pit. Fight a tough monster. No evasion possible. Okay, so we need to try and avoid the trap itself, which is dr10 presence. Our presence is -1, so we'll be doing a d20 roll, and hopefully rolling quite high. Ooh, that's low. 6 is low. We have failed to avoid the trap, so that means we've fallen into the monster pit. So I'm going to try and squeeze in a little monster pit here. I'm writing very, very small. On reflection, having a larger sheet I think would be beneficial. That's our monster pit. And we have to fight a tough monster in here. Not good news. What tough monster is in the monster pit? 3. Occult Inquisitor. Not who you would expect to meet in a monster pit. Difficulty roll 13. 8 HP. Does D10 damage. I think this might be the end of Mooney. So let's do our attack roll. 4. That's definitely a fail, isn't it? So it's going to do D10 damage to us. 2. How's Mooney doing at the moment? Oh, we're only on 6. But we have got a salve. A salve heals D6 HP, so we'll quickly use our salve. I'm just going to say you can use these things whenever you want. 4, so healing up 4, back up to 8. Did I roll that off camera? I think I might have done. It was a 4. Then we're going to roll to attack again. 5, that is appalling. D10 damage. 2 again. So that's taking us back down to 6 HP. Been quite lucky with the damage rolls, but it would be nice to be able to hit the monster. 17. So 17 is above the Cult Inquisitor's difficulty roll of 13, which means we are doing damage, and we are doing D8 damage, thanks to our crossbow. 6. Great, so that's taking the Cult Inquisitor down to 2 HP. Attacking again. Oh, that almost landed on the 15. 8, that is a miss, and the Cult Inquisitor is doing D10 damage to us. 1, we've been very lucky with these damage rolls. Attacking again, this is turning into a bit of an epic in this pit. 20, there we go, come on now. All we've got to do is not roll a 1 on this D8. 2 points of damage. The Cult Inquisitor is defeated, and we can add that onto our points. Now, we used those 10 points there. We've now got 13 additional points. Now, I could put it on my HP again, but that felt... just doing that constantly feels like we're never making any advancements. So I am going to use 10 points, which will leave us with 3, to increase our presence from -1 to 0. And we will no longer have that negative effect during combat. I can't quite believe that Mooney is still surviving. Over in the Necrospire, we have got the Whisperbird. So we're going to hit the Whisperbird, and I'm not going to do a roll for it, because whenever the Whisperbird is attacked near the Necrospire, they can't take damage anyway. And they can't do damage to us because we have distance on our side. So we hit the Whisperbird, or we miss the Whisperbird and enrage it to a sufficient point where it comes running at us as we stand on the edge of the monster pit, having pulled ourselves out. And now we can attack the Whisperbird with a difficulty roll of 5. 5! So had we have not made that improvement to our presence, that would have given us -1, which would have taken down to 4, and would have missed. But luckily, that hasn't happened. The Whisperbird only has 1 HP, so I don't have to roll for damage. I've just noticed the Whisperbird has got a special here, that it looks pathetic. So we have to pass a DR10 presence check before we are able to attack it, because it looks so pitiful. I'm going to roll for that as well. I know I'm doing it in the wrong order, but this is what we're going to do. 4, so that's a fail, which means that our first attack would actually have failed. Rather than killing the Whisperbird, we're sustaining damage from them. D4 damage, 3 points of damage, taking us down to 2 HP. Is this Whisperbird going to kill Mooney? 3, that's another miss. Ridiculous. Whisperbird attacks again, still feeling quite smug that it looks pitiful enough to convince us not to attack it. 4 points of damage, and the Whisperbird hilariously kills Mooney after Mooney battled a Cult Inquisitor in a pit. We have got a Whisperbird here. Now, I don't think anybody's going to come this way again because it's a dead end, but you never know, so I kind of need to mark, and you might not be able to see that, but I'm putting a little A in the corner so that I can write that we have a Whisperbird in there. What a ridiculous end. Sorry, Mooney, that wasn't good enough. We're going to give Wig a try. So Wig either has the option of a fresh start from a fresh entrance, or can go through this way, or up there or down there. So lots of options. If they go this way, Wig will have to try and avoid the spiked pit, because until that is triggered, it remains in place. but going that way at least gets them a bit closer, although they've got to go through this room with a basilisk spawn. They'd have to deal with the impenetrable darkness. Is it worth it? Let's have a quick look at Wig before we make a start. So Wig has a +1 in strength, -1 in agility, presence and toughness, so a mere 14 HP. However, Wig is devious, which means reducing traps to a DR6 presence check. That's pretty good. Also illiterate, as was Mooney. That just means they can't use powers, but we haven't had an opportunity to gain a power yet, so I didn't bring it up. Does less damage, has a sword, and has a phase key. Now, a phase key is a one-time use. It creates a secret door. My understanding of secret doors is they just allow you to put a door where there wasn't one before. So, for example, if we made our way all the way over here, we would be able to put a door through there and get closer to the lair. There's a lot of nonsense to get through to get that far. I feel like I'm dithering now. Yeah, do you know what? We're going to do this because he's good at dealing with traps, and we might create a door there just to get us a little bit closer. I think that would be worth doing. Going this way, nothing in this room. Wig moves on into the spiked pit room. Because he is devious, it means that the difficulty roll is reduced to 6 presence. 16, that is a comfortable pass. Gets past the spiked pit into the room with the teleport trap. Needs to try and avoid that as well. 20, using up all the good rolls, avoids the teleport trap. Then is going to use the phase key to create a new door over this way. Then we need to roll for this new room. 10 is a special room. 3, a chasm, 4 exits. An impassable chasm stretches across a diagonal. Interesting. So we've got a room here. I'm going to make this sort of a jaggedy room. We have got 4 exits, although the one directly opposite is going to be blocked because we know that we've got to that wall there next to our monster pit room. Now it's going to be a diagonal chasm, so either that way or that way. And it doesn't say which. Now obviously if it's that way, it's blocking off our new potential exit. If it's that way, then we're still able to access that exit. So we're going to have to do a 50-50 roll. I'm going to roll a d6. If it's a 1, 2 or 3, it will be the thing we don't want. And if it's a 4, 5 or 6, it'll be the thing we do want. 5, it's the thing we do want. So we've got a chasm that goes that way, but for us that is okay because it allows us to continue on this way. Wig is having moderate success so far. 8, an encounter. So this is a table we haven't come across before. We need to work out how many exits we've got first. 8, that gives us a crossroads. Fantastic news. There is our crossroads. Now we can look at the encounters table, which is a D8 table. 6, a trapped casket. DR12, agility to disarm or suffer a random trap. Contains 2 treasures. So do we only get the treasures if we don't fall prey to the trap? It doesn't say that. So do we suffer the trap but get the treasures either way? Maybe we do. It doesn't say, so I think I'm going to go for the one that gives us treasures. So let's see if the trap gets us. Wig has a -1 in agility. 19, lucky roll. Fantastic. So Wig managed to avoid the trap and is able to collect the treasures with no downside. So we're rolling D20 on the treasure table. 5, crude armour. That's good news. And 5 again. I don't want 2 crude armours. Let's have something else. 14, decent armour. Well, it would be rude not to. Can I keep it? Can you sell things at any point? So the merchant only, I'm looking up here, the merchant only trades random items, so we'll keep our crude armour, probably in a bag, and then we'll put on the decent armour. Oh, but it does affect your agility tests negatively. Alright, so I'll try my best to remember that our agility is now negatively affected. I've made a note down here of our crude armour and our decent armour. And now we can carry on. And I guess Wig will go this way and is in pretty decent shape. Alright, next room. 2 is a trapped room. I feel like we're getting a lot of traps. Let's see how many exits we've got. Left and ahead. Is that good? I think that's good. And let's find out the trap that we're dealing with. A blinding flash. You are blinded. All rolls are DR6. So hopefully we can avoid that. So we're going this way. So we've got left and ahead. Now left we can't have because it goes into the side of the monster pit room. So we're going to have just ahead. But that is okay because that gets us ever closer to the lair. Since we are devious, that means the trap is a difficulty roll 6 on pre. 16. So, and our presence is -1, so 15. So that comfortably gets around the trap, but the trap remains in place until someone triggers it or disarms it, which is not us today. 6. A tough monster guarding a treasure. Keep moving that aside before we do the rooms roll. 3. That is ahead again. This is quite exciting. We're getting close-ish to the lair here. At least it feels that way. Right, what monster are we dealing with? 2 is a Nethelix monkey. DR12, 7 HP, D6 damage. A special, if hit, test DR8 strength or be thrown through a random exit, sustaining D4 damage. Righto, here we go. 14, and we are no longer... Oh no, it was... I was thinking of Wig. I was about to say we are no longer subtracting 1 for our presence, but we're just using a regular weapon now, so we're using our strength rather than our presence, which is +1. So 14 plus 1 is 15. So that is a successful hit. We can roll for damage, which is D6 for the sword. 6. That's really good. But the Nethelix monkey has 7 HP, so we haven't killed it yet, but we haven't been hit by it, so we don't have to do the special, I don't think. So let's see what happens in round 2. 17, that's very lucky. And obviously we've only got 1 point of damage left to do, so we'll do that without thinking about it. We don't have to roll a dice, so the monkey is defeated. Doing all right here. So that's 12 points. Now, do I want to immediately spend some of those? I think we do. We can increase a stat by 1, so we could do our agility or toughness or... Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. Yeah, we could do our agility, presence or toughness. Shall we do our presence? Yeah, I think we'll take our presence up to 0. That will leave us 2 points for the future. Oh, and it was guarding treasure, wasn't it? Was it guarding treasure? Yes, it was. So we also get a treasure. 4 is a monkey. Oh, isn't that nice? So from the Nethelix monkey, we got a monkey. That gives us plus D4 damage in combat. Can be sacrificed to avoid a fatal wound. Let's crack on into the next room, and we are getting super close to that lair, and we're only on our 2nd character. 1. That's bad, isn't it? Is that bad? No, it's just an empty room. Okay, how many exits? We just don't want a dead end. 4. Right. That's not the right way, but it could have been worse. So there's our empty room. We're going to go straight into the next room, so we're kind of moving away from the lair all of a sudden. 9 is a special room. 8 is an arcane temple. Roll d6 if you approach the altar. So it's optional. 1, struck by lightning, does some damage. 2, gain a random affliction. 3, ignored. 4 to 5, fully healed. 6, gain the use of 1 power. Now I am illiterate, which means that I can't gain a power. We're on full health. Really, there's not much point, because we can't get fully healed. We're already fully healed. And we can't use a power. So I'll just write that there's an arcane temple in here. I don't know whether future characters can use such things. I think they can. Right, let's keep going. Next room. 5. A weak monster. How many doors? 2 left. That's good, because that is this way. And we've got a weak monster. 6. A wickhead assassin. DR10. 3 HP. D6 damage. Special. DR12 presence. I think that's a typo. DR presence off B hit with a preemptive strike. So I guess that means we need to do a check to see if they get a preemptive strike. I think that just means they get a hit in on us before we start. So let's give that a go. DR12 presence. Our presence is now 0. It was -1 before. 15, that is a success, so we're not getting hit. We can go into our first round of normal combat with the assassin. 2, definite miss against a DR10, so that means we're taking D6 damage. 3, but we've got our decent armour, so that's minus D4 damage, minus 1 agility as well. I need to remember that. So we've taken 3 damage less 2, so only 1 point of damage. Down to 13 HP. Let's try again. 6, that's another miss. 2 points of damage. The armour saves us though, absorbing all of it because I rolled a 3. Come on, let's get this assassin. 3. It's really frustrating. Oh. 5 points of damage. Armour's absorbing 3. Armour's pretty helpful. So that's taking us down to 11. Come on now. What we need to do is roll a 10? 10! There we go. That was a 10. It was on 10. Okay, so we need to do 3 points of damage. We're rolling d6 for our sword. And we've done 6 points of damage. So it is enough to destroy the assassin. Taking us up to 12 points. I'm tempted to say we should increase our current and max HP. That's one of the options that we can do by spending 10 points. So I'm going to roll d4 and we'll increase our HP by that much. 3, that's pretty good. So that means our max HP is going up to 17. Our current HP is going up to 14. That is pretty sweet. On to the next room, I think. Here we go. 3, trapped. A trapped room. Doors. 3 is ahead. Okay. Now, if we want, at some point, we can optionally search for a secret door up in that direction. There is some risk when you do that. You roll a d4. On a 1, a weak monster appears. On a 2, you discover a trap. On a 3, there's just no secret door. And you have to roll a 4 to place the door. And you can only do that once per room. Right, what trap have we got going on in here? 1, a teleport. Right, let's try and avoid it. 20, that is a success. So I'll just write that in for any future adventurers. And on to the next room. 2, another trapped room. We had so many traps. How many doors? 7, right and ahead. That is less than ideal. Ahead is that way, and right is down that way. Ooh, okay. Right, what trap have we got going on in here? 6, a devious puzzle. Right, let's see if we avoid it. 17, yes we do. Luckily we're very good at avoiding traps. So we'll just write a devious puzzle in here. On to the next room, which will hopefully have a left turn in it. Or should we try and search the current room for a hidden door? I think maybe we should. We'll try and search the current room for a hidden door. Hopefully we'll roll a 4. 3. And that just means no secret door. So we have to put an X on this room to show that we can't search it again. So we are going to go on to the next room. 7, an encounter. Alright, let's just see how many doors. 7, right and ahead. Very frustrating. So ahead, that's going to be a dead end because that's going off the edge. You can go off the bottom and get to the top, and go off the top and get to the bottom, so it wraps around that way, but if you hit the edge, then that's just a dead end, unfortunately. So we've only got one way leaving this room, and it's down this way, which is obviously away from the lair. And we haven't got a lot of additional options, unfortunately. We can go and try and search these rooms for hidden exits, secret passages rather, or we can go all the way up here and go that way, but we've got to go through all kinds of treacherous rooms to get there. But let's see what the encounter is going to be in this room. So it's D8. 7, a sorcerous soul approaches. Will you trade a quarter of your current HP, rounded up, for a scroll with a random power? 1 use, they then vanish. Well, again, there's no point because we're illiterate and we can't use random scrolls and we can't gain powers. So that's that, really. So what are we going to do now? Well, we can search to see whether there is a secret passage. 3, no there isn't. Then we can go back this way and we can search this room for a secret passage, but I think we'll once again trigger that teleport trap. And 5, that is a fail. So we have triggered the trap. Traps only get triggered once, I believe, so we can cross it out now and read what the consequences are. Now, interestingly, this might be okay. The teleport trap moves you D4 spaces in a random direction. So I guess what we're going to do is we're going to say up on a 1 or a 2, right on a 3 or a 4, down on a 5 or a 6, and left, as we are looking at it, on a 7 or an 8. And this is rolling a D8 to see which way we go, hoping for a 1 or a 2. 8. So we're going in this direction. Absolutely pointless. And how many spaces? We're being teleported 4 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We are appearing in this space here. We need to find out what the room is. 7. Having an encounter. How many doors? 8. A crossroads. And what encounter are we going to have in here? 2. Find a treasure. 8. A black potion. 1 use. Automatically inflicts D6 damage. Could be quite handy. Alright, this character seems to be really hanging on to life quite a lot. So I think I'm going to pause there and we'll come back in a second video. We'll carry on with Wig, and if he dies, we'll push on to Jack. But I think that's probably enough for this one. Let me know what you think of this game, folks. I know it's a game that a lot of people in the solo tabletop community are quite fond of. Definitely an interesting one, a little bit different. So join me in part 2 to see how Wig fares as he continues to make his way, hopefully, in the direction of the lair over there. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.